Hi, my name is Soomin Jung Remmler. I'm an artist and an educator. You are looking at landscapes, and the landscapes are not just the landscape that I create is not just beautiful scene of the nature. I want the viewers to, feel like they are back home, thinking about maybe the travel, the family trip that you took before, things like that. So my landscape is not just landscape, it's the timelessness of the environment that's surrounding us while we are changing the generations, getting old and having more babies and they grow up and we grow old. So it's about the family, motherly love, and changing generations and timelessness of those love. I'm from Seoul, South Korea. I was born and raised in Korea and moved here when I was in college. And I think I lived here almost as long as I lived in Seoul, South Korea. I still feel like, when where my parents are at is my home. Now I have my children, so it feels kind of differently. Also, I consider my home where my kids are at, but the time kind of sort of stopped once I moved away from my parents, even though I was already adult when I was moving here. So yeah, I was really close with my family growing up, and my sister ended up moving to Switzerland and she lives there. I'm here, my brother lives in Austin, Texas, and my parents are back in Korea. So we kind of like spread all over the world, and that's something that, that kind of the time when I left home, it's the part of my life that kind of like stopped and just there always. Growing up, my dad was a military officer, so he couldn't leave the area that he serves too often. So whenever he gets a chance, he will take us for a trip, traveling a lot through like all over the country, seeing the nature. Similarity or differences in between the regions kind of became the part of my youth, and I think naturally I got really interested in looking at the nature and how people live in the different environment, and how they look so different, but at the same time, like especially like me moving from Korea to the States, like there's a cultural shock, and I think there are layers of cultural shock, and you think everything's so different and people are so different, but like deep down I think people are people and they are all the same. And so in general, home is, I think, whether you are wherever you are from, home is where your heart is. And I think that's why I use home in my work a lot, just thinking about my own home. And I want the viewers to think about their childhood when they look at my work, and not just childhood, something that makes their heart kind of warm and feel they're at home. So it's really common scene that I saw the houses and lights coming through the windows with the mountains scene. So I'm using like a lot of images like this, kind of abstract, like the mountain lines and lights coming through the windows. I use like stars and snowflakes and sunset, sunrise a lot in my work. Those are like sparkly things in the sky that makes your heart sink when you look at it. Especially in the evening, you're like strolling in the neighborhood, you see the lights in the window. I think for anybody, it kind of makes your heart warm. So I have two kids. One's 10 and the other one's 2. There was a time that having little ones are really crazy. Your life is kind of like crazy, especially if you're a mom and full-time working person, at like mom, wife, and you have full-time job. I think at one point I had 2 full-time jobs. I was just too busy to think about anything else. And then when my son was about like 5 years old, the life kind of got super comfortable. And then we had the second one, and back to, the crazy taking care of a little infant. And so I think that's when I really start thinking about like how much parents, or especially moms, has to sacrifice, like starting with nighttime sleep. I started to think about that, and at first it was all about me, like how much I sacrificed and how much time like I don't get to sleep. I have to do the job that I have to do after everybody went to sleep, and everybody has to be taken care of first. My work schedule has to evolve around everybody else's schedule. And then I started to think about my parents, like how they were once fruitful and beautiful and young and, lively, and, so now they are like grandparents that, we don't even picture them as young couple. And I think that's when I started to think about like the parental love, especially motherly love, and also how children, like, by looking at my babies looking at me, they can't even sleep if I'm not holding them, and how much they love me and how much I love them. And my parents, we went through the same things, like no matter how many times I said, you don't understand, mom, you never know. No matter how many times I said that. So yeah, it's kind of like cycling, and while I was working, so my work just naturally kind of started to reflect those ideals of a home, motherly love, and I started to title those works with the thoughts that came while I was working. Like the first one it's kind of ambiguous if it's sunset or sunrise. That's titled Love at First Sight. Like for people who don't have kids, it could be more like read as romantic message, which is fine, but for me it's love at first sight when you actually gave birth to your baby, and you look at the baby, and like that's something really special. So that's where the title came from. And this is sunrise here, just kind of remembering like kids playing with those paper origamis, and now they are gone home. So sunset, I have like a paper boat just kind of floating. This is airplane flying, so it's sunset. So kids play with origamis, and they kind of leave it out when they go home, and you see like the emptiness after, or the aftermath of kids playing, and then they come back out and they start moving again. And but I don't put people in my work. And I want the viewers to fill in the emptiness, but there are just evidences of people being there before. And then the last one is called Home, with the window lights, like I was saying, kind of like abstract image of window light that you see. So there are mountains and buildings, like apartments and big skyscrapers, all mixed in Seoul. And we used to go for a stroll to a little mountain behind our house after dinner a lot. And when we take off, it's gonna be kind of evening time. And by the time we are coming back down, it's kind of dark. And you're gonna start seeing those lights coming from all the houses. And sometimes you can see like little people inside. And it always made me feel like, oh, I'm coming home. And kind of, it's really hard to describe in words. I'm sure there is somebody who can describe in words a little better, how it makes you feel so cozy and comfortable, and you are right there, but you're still like longing for it. And that feeling, I think anybody can relate to those feelings, and I wanted the viewers to feel that feeling from that image also. So those titles, it kind of sounds like country music, country song titles, but they come together and become poems. I have two pieces that I wrote. first one is like a message to my children. It's clearly, like mom talking to their children. And then second one is a little more ambiguous, and it could be like in any relationship, could be from children to parents or the other way, or it could be like said in between the, in romantic relationship. So like even if you don't have kids, you can relate. So the first one is, you are what my dreams may become. This is the end of my time and the beginning of yours. Countless shining moments await like fireflies in the dusk. When the time comes and you shine like stars in the indigo sky, I step back and admire how beautiful you are, how wonderful you are. My sun only exists to make your moon bright. My river runs through you. When you think of me seasons after seasons, I'll come to you like first snow in the dark night. I'll come to you like first snow in the dark ocean. Second one, it was love at first sight. Twilight, morning star, my Venus. The more precious, the more I look. The more I long for, the closer I get. Where is the end of me? Where is the beginning of us? Sweet home, when you call my name quietly, home comes to you. I come to you. You come to me. Softly and gingerly like first snow, little by little like spring rain.